When looking at AAA games that promised the moon during their marketing campaign but woefully fell short at launch, Fallout 76 stands up there among the worst-case scenarios in recent memory. Many people won't soon forget how Todd Howard stood on stage during E3 2018 and made silly promises like how Fallout 76 would have 16 times the detail, among other infamous quotes that ended up being quite misleading or flat-out lies from various Bethesda higher-ups. Among those lies came from none other than Pete Hines, VP of Marketing and Communication over at Bethesda. Recall that on multiple occasions he was asked about the role that microtransactions would play in Fallout 76, and each time he responded to such inquiries by assuring that the game's monetization would be non-intrusive, that they would be cosmetic only, that they would not have any effect on gameplay or offer any sort of pay-to-win scenario. His exact quote was, "The Atomic Shop is cosmetic stuff. To make sure folks understand, look, there's a line. There are people who have crossed it, but we're going to stay on the right side of it in terms of the things you can spend money on and how this stuff works and what you're getting for your $60. But then the game launched, and we not only learned that Fallout 76's purchasable items in the Atomic Store were ludicrously priced. Months down the line, the game began to introduce gameplay affecting microtransactions despite Pete Hines' promise. Most recently, Fallout 76 introduced repair kits, consumable items that allow players to repair weapons on the fly without having to find a workbench or anything of the sort. Had they simply been gameplay additions, they would have been met with open arms. But it turned out that Bethesda decided to allow players to purchase these repair kits in the Atomic Store. Now, repair kits may seem like they're no big deal at a glance, but they do in fact offer tangible gameplay advantages and conveniences. I've already talked about how with repair kits on hand, you don't have to stop what you're doing and then seek out a workbench to repair a weapon, but another major factor is that repair kits also allow players to forgo the material cost involved in fixing up a weapon. So certain weapons may require rare materials that players would traditionally have to grind for, but by using repair kits, they can go ahead and skip that process, which makes repair kits quite desirable and something players may feel tempted to pay for. Also worth noting is that Bethesda seemed to insinuate in patch notes that other requested conveniences beyond repair kits, like refrigerators for camps, ammo and food converters, and the ability to send scrap to your stash without having to head home, may be monetized. There is ample concern going around that repair kits are only the beginning, that Bethesda slowly but surely inchworming their way to more egregious forms of monetization that have more of an effect on gameplay, which is why news outlet PC Gamer brought the topic up with Fallout 76 project lead Jeff Gardner during an interview he participated in back in June 2019. Yeah, I'm a bit late on this one, but it's been on the back burner for a while, and it's something that I wanted to address after the E3 2019 madness was over. Anyway, when asked about his thoughts on the notion that repair kits give players who pay for them an advantage over those who don't, Gardner disagreed by stating the following: "We believed the repair kits were a convenience item for people who didn't want to grind for adhesive and other things, and it was just a way for them to basically shortcut game systems, definitely not pay to win. I will argue with anybody that repair kits makes you win at the game. First of all, you're not really competing with one another except for in PvP mode. We have all the information, how often people repair, what they repair, and again, you can repair in the game, it's simply just a strict convenience thing. That's my take on repair kits." Oh fucking hell, the lack of understanding about consumers' qualms with gameplay affecting microtransactions is absolutely unreal. Basically, what Gardner is trying to say here is that the way they're doing it is not the absolute worst. It's not full-on pay-to-win, it's more pay for convenience, and that makes it okay. Except the offer of convenience, or as he put it, the ability to shortcut game systems, is one of the major ways game companies distastefully tempt people into shelling out extra cash. In that same vein, Gardner could argue Assassin's Creed Odyssey's XP boosters aren't technically pay-to-win, and that there's no PvP element given given it's a single-player title, but that doesn't make it any less shitty that the XP booster was paywalled in a game whose campaign is level-gated, and many people have reported that the game's campaign progresses at a better pace with the XP booster turned on. Ubisoft could have easily made the XP booster a feature that players can toggle at their convenience in the settings, but instead, they decided to intentionally strip the feature away from the game and charge money for it. So adamant is Ubisoft about ensuring that players don't have access to the convenience of earning XP faster without paying Ubisoft that they recently threatened to sanction players who use the quest creator to upload and play through quests designed to farm XP. Ubisoft claimed that such quests were exploits, even though uninspired farming quests and self-completing quests of that nature are par for the course anytime players are given tools to make user-created content. Because God forbid players find ways to make their experience more convenient, God forbid players don't pay for conveniences that should be inherent to a game. Essentially, if players don't pay up, these conveniences are deemed exploits, and if they do pay for them, then they're deemed an optional convenience. Using Gardner's logic, one could also look at Elder Scrolls Blades, a game Todd Howard laughably described as a pure Elder Scrolls experience during E3 2018, and argue that paying for gems in order to skip timers for loot chests isn't technically pay to win, especially given there's no PvP component in the game yet. You could argue that you're just paying for the convenience of not having to wait for hours upon hours to reap rewards you earned in-game, except the unnecessary inconvenience of having to wait for chest timers to run down was intentionally introduced by Bethesda in the first place. This was something they purposely implemented for no real good reason beyond wanting to nickel and dime players by strong-arming them into buying gems. These timers don't actually add anything to the game. They're in no way, shape, or form fun. It's never fun to have to wait to claim gameplay rewards, but it's a problem Bethesda purposely decided to implement so players will be tempted to pay for the solution, for the convenience of skipping the purposefully inconvenient design. Same thing goes for many other mobile titles that feature timers that you can pay to skip, or the ability to pay for revives, or just flat out pay to power up. The fact of the matter is that a game's microtransactions don't necessarily have to offer anything resembling an instant win button in order to be egregious and psychologically manipulative. Regardless of whether we're dealing with a PvP or PvE environment, regardless of whether a game is competitive, cooperative, or solo in nature, regardless of whether we're dealing with single player or multiplayer, the dance of microtransactions simply involves finding a way to annoy players just enough with poor design so they can then pay to mitigate that poor design. Convenience is literally the thing that companies exploit to strong-arm and lure players into spending more money. The convenience of earning rewards faster, of becoming more powerful faster, of looking badass faster, of essentially instant gratification. That's the fuel that drives microtransaction sales. Game companies are well aware that human beings are inherently impatient, with some people unable to resist the psychological pull of being able to pay for conveniences, leading to compulsive spending. And the worst version of these kinds of mechanics are, of course, loot boxes, when paid conveniences have an added element of chance where you might not actually get what you want on your first try, or on your 100th try for that matter. Obviously, Fallout 76 doesn't quite reach the loot box level, not yet at least, though there are some signs suggesting that introducing loot boxes is very much on the table in a future update for the title. But I'll say again that something not being the utmost worst version of an insidious scheme or practice doesn't make it not insidious. In the case of Fallout 76, Bethesda's well aware players will be tempted to pay for the convenience of being able to repair items without having to stop what you're doing and seek out workbenches, or without having to search for and expend rare materials. Sure, you can argue that repair kits aren't automatic win buttons, but they do make the game flow better. They do make things less insufferable and less annoying. And Bethesda, instead of keeping the playing field even by having all players have to work for that convenience through gameplay activities, they made it so that Fallout 76 players who pay up get to have the advantage of getting easier access to that convenience. Stuff like this is the essence of how exploitative microtransactions work. Gardner thinks he's making a good case here by arguing that it's not blatant pay to win, by making the case that this is paying for convenience, but all he really did was spotlight exactly why Fallout 76's gameplay affecting monetization tactics are so problematic. This segment of the article then concludes with Fallout 76 development director Chris Mayer chiming in by pretending that he ultimately sympathizes with gamers. PC Gamer transcribed his sentiments as follows. Mayer agrees, but he also talks about how there are two well-defined lines of microtransactions, with one being purely cosmetic items and the other being items that can give you a noticeable competitive advantage, and he acknowledges there's something of a gray area between them. He doesn't see repair kits as pay to win, but at the same time, he understands the controversy. I can certainly see why other players would see it as being on the other side of the cosmetic line, he says. He's basically saying, yeah, I totally hear them, and not really doing anything about the issue, which is a classic Bethesda move. They'll say, we acknowledge the problem, but then just kind of leave it at that. The bottom line is that Bethesda ultimately lied about how microtransactions would be handled in Fallout 76, promising cosmetics-only purchases, but then introducing the ability to pay for gameplay-affecting items, and the excuses and justifications they're giving are nothing short of piss-poor and dismissive. While being able to pay for repair kits doesn't break the game in any way, we are seeing Bethesda getting more and more comfortable with misleading and flat-out lying to consumers, as well as with inching little by little towards more and more egregious forms of monetization. I'm beginning to wonder why on God's green earth should I ever trust anything Bethesda has to say moving forward, and why should I not believe that microtransactions won't get worse with future Bethesda titles? After all, this is the same pattern we have seen with other companies that have now become over-dependent on predatory monetization. They too took it one step at a time and slowly but surely made headway when it came to pushing the envelope of scummy microtransactions. They start with smaller lies and monetization schemes, but over the course of years, they get bolder and bolder on both fronts. Just to further prove my point that Bethesda's headed in this same direction, remember how the company was once all about saving single-player games, about maintaining integrity on that front? Well, guess what? Turns out the upcoming Wolfenstein game, Youngblood, a premium-priced single-player title, has been confirmed to feature cosmetic microtransactions. And this isn't the first time we have seen Bethesda try to monetize single-player games. Remember how they tried to monetize mods? It's probably safe to expect that they'll make similar attempts with upcoming titles like Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. So yeah, all things considered, looking at Bethesda's behavior as a company over the last few years, from Creation Club to Fallout 76 to Elder Scrolls Blades and now with Wolfenstein, I cannot say that I feel optimistic about the direction they're headed in. For my part, they're no longer among the trustworthy game companies, they're no longer one of the quote-unquote good guys, they sit among the likes of EA, Activision, Take-Two, and Ubisoft now. It's a damn shame, really. Having grown up with Bethesda, it truly does break my heart to see them devolve like this, and based on their recent actions, I have no confidence that they'll turn things around. I get the sense that they'll double down on misleading marketing campaigns, false advertisements, shoddy game releases, and a continuous push for game design marring, bolder monetization. I don't know, these are one man's take on the situation. I'd love to hear what your take is on Bethesda lying about Fallout 76 microtransactions and the justifications they're giving in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.